So today we are going to be doing the book club for Part B, Book 6, which is Understanding Government Budgets, A Guide to Practices in Public Service by R. Mark Muscle. And my background's actually in accounting and finance. My parents are super thrilled with my life choices. But court's definitely my passion. And so this book really is a good fit for me, and hopefully I would be able to answer any questions that come up that you'd like to have a conversation about. But what I would like to, the way I'd like to structure our session today is we're going to go through, everybody responds with the answer. If for some reason you've left this one blank, or you need us to give some direction on where we found it in the publication, or you just want to discuss it, stop me. Otherwise, if everybody answers in the affirmative and we're all familiar with what the answer may be, we're going to go ahead and move on. Does that work for you ladies?
Yes.
Good. All right. So number one, define the term budget.
Plans covering future income and spending.
That's it. It's just as simple as that. It's just a plan covering future income and projected spending. Number two, how long is a budget year?
12 months.
12 months, exactly. Now that 12 months can vary. Government budgets typically, or local government budgets typically run in October 1 to September 30. But that's not inclusive of all government entities. Some work on a January through December, and there are a few that go September through the end of August. So, but all budgets are, a budget year is 1 year, 12 months. Why is forecasting important to a budget?
It shows budget activity as if government is on autopilot and was going to continue the same way in the future.
Okay. Does anybody have anything different than that? I have that. I also have future orientation underscores why forecasting future revenues and spending are important. So maybe just take that, expound on that just a little bit more than the first sentence that you have there, which is absolutely correct. Number 4, state and local governments apply GASB, accounting standards. What are the benefits of an agency applying such standards?
I've got the influence resources available to organizations.
Does anybody have anything else?
And accounting standards influence budgets.
Yes. So I have creates standards and influences resources available to help governments receive can't read my writing. Oh, to get a clean audit. That's what my note says there. I'm sorry, ladies. To receive a clean audit opinion.
Okay.
Number 5, what are the 5 basic elements of the budget?
Budget coverage, budget status, budget numbers, spending, and revenues.
Yes. And how lists are organized for presentation. So coverage, status, numbers, how spending and revenues are listed in budgets, and how lists are organized for presentation. Number 6, what are the objectives of a balanced budget?
to cover the cost of the services provided in a given period with the revenues generated in that period.
Perfect. That is textbook. That is a textbook answer, literally a textbook. All right, number 7. Miss Terry, will you tell us what the list of 4 stages of the budget cycle?
Really can't tell you because I thought this meeting was something else, so I'm just listening.
Oh,
and
I'm
taking
sorry.
notes.
Okay.
So I'm just listening and taking notes because I need that information too.
Okay. All right. Miss Beverly, do you have that listed out? Oh, I think you're muted. Hold on. All right, while she's working on getting unmuted, Dina, can you give us the answer there?
Preparation, approval, implementation, and review.
Yes. So, and the biggest part of that I just wanted to kind of, that's absolutely correct. But one thing I want to tell you is you may be asked, you know, what could be one of the most important steps, and don't forget review. Sometimes, you know, preparing it, we get all the emails, get it ready, submit it, whatever that process looks like. And then it goes through the commissioner council approval process. And then, of course, you know, October 1 or whatever our budget year looks like, we're implementing and working on that budget. But it's really important, that final step of going back and doing a continuous periodic review of that budget. All right. All right, Beverly, can you hear us now?
I can.
Okay,
Can you hear
good.
me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So will you answer number
Well,
8? Why is knowing the status of a budget important?
Okay, I am just like her. I'm just stepping in for the first time ever
Yeah, me
and taking
too.
notes.
I am.
So I don't even know
Okay.
what we're looking at.
Okay, so let me ask you ladies this. Have you had the opportunity to read the book?
I haven't.
No.
Okay. Well,
Which book is
you're
this
more than
one?
welcome to stay on. I'm not sure that you'll benefit as much from it if you had read the book, but we'll
Are we
go
frozen?
ahead
Oh,
and
no.
Which is this
and
one?
move forward with number 8.
Are we frozen?
We might.
Can you?
No, I don't.
I-
Not frozen on my side.
Yeah, I was frozen.
All right. So,
Okay.
What book
Number-
are you? What book are you from? Are y'all answering through?
this is the Understanding Government Budget.
Okay.
Okay, so tomorrow I'll do the 7 fives.
All right. So, why is knowing the status of a budget important?
Because it changes throughout the process.
Yes, absolutely. Budgets change as we move through the preparation, proposal, and adoption process. So it's really important to know what status that budget is in. Number 9, what different ways can a government measure budget activity?
I've got appropriations, commitments and obligations, disbursements, outlays, receipts, and accrual.
That's it. So appropriations, commitments, obligations, disbursement, outlays and receipts, and accruals. Number 10,
120 days.
Dina, will you tell us what is an outlay?
Cash payments against obligations incurred.
Please not guilty and speak to the city attorney, but I can't guarantee.
It sounds like we've got some background noise going on there. Can we, I don't know where that's coming. Do y'all know whose office that's coming from? Thank you. Yes, outlay is payments under contracts for capital projects. All right, number 11, what is a receipt?
Cash income.
That's it. That is,
Mhm.
that applies to any cash income of a government. And that can be a little tricky too.
Mhm.
Dina and I were talking about earlier that a lot of times with the level 3 materials, it's a lot of common sense things. Where 1 and 2 are really, you just have to know it. You have to memorize it
Mhm.
or learn it. Well,
Mhm.
level 3 is a very different perspective, and a different learning style. And, I have had some folks ask about, because we think of a receipt as a tangible, either something
Mhm.
we printed or they got
Right.
emailed or some other way that is a receipt. But keep in mind, as we're talking about budgets and these type of functions, we're talking about the actual receipt of cash funds. Um, number 12, describe how spending and revenues are listed in state and local budgets.
So spending, I have items and or services, activity and objects and goals. And then revenue is by the source.
Okay. Dorothy, do you have anything different from that? Or expounded upon that?
I've got, I think the revenue is the same, but I've got, depends on the type of spending.
Okay,
The subject, the major capital investments in buildings, equipment, and similar items. The list describes the projects or items purchased,
okay.
and then revenue listed by source.
And all of those are correct. I also have methods vary, but the oldest and most widely used format budgets list spending by the items purchased and used in providing services to citizens. So, is it, those are both correct, it just, mine's just a little bit different. Number 13, what is a fund?
Categories.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's categories according to the uses permitted.
That is part of it, yes, ma'am. Do you have anything other than that, Dina?
A collection of resources recorded and tracked separately.
Yes. I have resources earmarked or designated for a specific purpose, helps governments demonstrate that they are using such resources as they were intended. So, both of those answers are correct. Number 14, list the 4 types of government funds.
General, special revenue, debt service, and capital projects.
Yes, ma'am, that's it. Number 15, in what ways can you describe a workforce in a budget?
Distributions by agency and activity, work and pay related characteristics, pay plan, occupations, work schedules, and top of employment.
Yes, ma'am, I have that, and the only different thing I have is trends over time is at the very beginning of my sentence there, so, just how is that trend, how does that, how do all those things trend over a period of time? Number 16, what is FTE?
Full-time equivalents.
Yes, ma'am. So, with keeping that in mind, what would be a PTE?
Part-time.
Part-time.
Okay, so you'd have a PT, and then if you have 2 PTs and they both work 20 hours apiece, you've got a full-time equivalent in those 2 employees, right?
Right.
Or if that's divided among 4, or however that works, if those hours add up to a 40-hour work week, that is a full-time equivalent. All right. List and describe the 5 types of performance measures.
I've got outputs, tells the amount of work produced,
Mm-hmm.
and then outcomes, links the outputs to the result or benefit.
Yes.
Equity is element of fairness and justice. Productivity, efficiency, and lost effectiveness. tells us something about the resources consumed in producing outputs and outcomes. And then quality and customer satisfaction. What does it say? Relates to how well a program conducts its affairs.
Yes. And how citizens react to that program. That's,
Yes,
that's, and,
customer satisfaction. Mhm.
yes, that's one you might want to star or highlight. And you may actually see that as maybe 5 different questions as they relate to that. They may not be worded exactly the same, but that is a topic you want to become familiar with. Number 18, list the budget links and performance information that provide how a given level of performance relates to what a government is trying to accomplish.
So mine is a long answer. I don't know if this is right. Missions, goals, objectives, and strategies can make it clear how a given level of performance relates to what the agency is trying to accomplish. And then I went on, for instance, if the court wants to increase the number of payments made online versus in person, then that would be a goal. One strategy might be to market online payments with text links and printed QR codes. This would link to a possible increase in credit card filing fees, but overall, the revenue would increase.
Yes, ma'am. All of that. Well said. Number 19, how are benchmarks associated with performance information?
There's specific targets or standards that can help in evaluating a particular level of performance.
Yes, ma'am. That's it. That's it. How can officials use performance measures?
So I have to judge efficiency and effectiveness of our efforts. Is that complete or?
I think we can expound on it a little bit.
Yes, I have to justify budget request, to adjust spending targets to illustrate the impact on performance of different funding levels. And then also to direct resources in a way that help boost performance.
Good. And the only other thing I have is to set priorities among competing demands.
Oh, yes, I missed that.
Define capital investments.
Large, long-lived capital assets.
And what would be some examples of, I know that's not part of the question, but what would be some examples of capital investments?
Buildings, construction, something that's going to last, maybe even vehicles that will have a long-term life.
Yes, so construction, large acquisitions, even major repairs, roads, buildings, infrastructures, equipment, those could all be considered as capital assets. 22, what capital budget information is covered in state and local budgets?
I've got covers the construction equipment purchases. Rather than services, although governments may include information on spending for architectural, engineering, and related services in
Yes.
budget.
Yeah, that's kind of just what we all, it may not necessarily be just the building of the building, but maybe the engineering services and other things that have to go into that capital investment. Number 23, what types of projects and programs are included in a capital budget? And this is almost just a repeat of, just a restating of the same new construction, acquisitions, major repairs, infrastructure, those kind of. Number 24, how are some capital projects financed?
I put debt, borrowing, loans, bonds.
So it could be current revenues, it could be grant funds, it could be money that unassigned, coming out of your unassigned fund balance. It could be borrowing. Sometimes we see capital funds or capital projects are financed by the sale of specific properties, or the trading of properties. Sometimes we see that happening with economic development, trades property and things like that. So government can get pretty creative when they need to finance something. Number 25, in the simplest terms, what are tax expenditures?
Tax breaks?
That's it. They're tax breaks. So they are taxes that the government does not collect. So they're not tax income, therefore they have to be classified as tax expenditures. Number 26, what type of taxes do they apply to?
Property, income, sales, and other taxes.
Correct. So we see that a lot with ad valorem tax, as an economic incentive to bring in a business. Maybe taxes are waived for a certain period of time. Maybe the 1% sales tax is waived until a business can get on their feet, or some other tax is waived by the government entity to allow a new business to get on their feet. But and we don't have a state income tax, so the majority of what we see is related to ad valorem taxes. 27, what is the purpose of understanding tax expenditures?
Can help draw government and its priorities into clear focus by revealing more about the full level of commitment to various concerns.
Absolutely. So like I said, they're using those as incentive. If the government decides they want to bring in more business, they want to bring in a new subdivision, they want to, whatever would benefit that community most, and whatever that sitting legislative body decides is their priority, then they can use those tax expenditures to help promote that.
Yep.
Number 28, how is the federal budget structured?
So I have this one marked, so I'm not sure that it's correct. What I have is the bulk of federal spending is to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, national defense, and interest on the national debt. But I'm not sure that that's the correct answer, and I'm not sure I could get the right one.
And I think that those are good examples.
Okay.
Dottie, do you have something different?
I had a question mark also, but this is what
Okay.
I have. Budget preparation, budget approval, budget implementation, and budget review.
Okay. And I think both of those things are correct. I don't think those are incorrect. What I have are agencies, programs, and functions. Agency, programs, functions, process to compel Congress when breaking their own rules. No one document tells the story. So, and that's, like I said, that's just me expounding on that. And another kind of sidebar, anytime you have a budget and your function and you're trying to explain, make sure that you have multiple sources that are telling your story. I don't know how many of you are directly responsible for budgeting and preparing a budget. I would imagine Dottie is court administrator, and I don't know what ladies, I don't know what your role is, but as you're looking at agencies, programs, and functions, make sure that the documents that you're creating compel your legislative body to either approve or consider the things that you're proposing in your budget, and make sure it's in multiple places, because sometimes that redundancy in a budget request can make a big difference. And for an example, you may see it in an or maybe in an overview on a cover sheet with a budget request. Then you may see that same item allocated as a line item, or show the difference in how you're adjusting a line item or requesting to adjust a line item, and then maybe even a small statement as to what the benefit would be to the community, to the organization, So sometimes creating that redundancy and allowing that paper to tell the story when you're not there to tell it, can be, really important, especially when you have a massive budget like the federal government. Right, 29, define deficit.
Overspending and a fiscal period.
Yes. I think we all understand the deficit. I think we were all young once, right? Um,
I still,
you're still young. Who said I'm
Yeah.
still young? Well, I can't say I'm still young, but I think we've all been there.
just say it.
Define debt.
The amount owed, total amount an organization has borrowed or owes to others.
That's it. 31, list and define the 3 basic measures of spending in the federal government.
Outlays, record payments made in the budget year. They're a measure of the cash paid out by government. Obligations are the total amounts of contracts or other commitments the government taxes on in a year, whether payment occurs in the current or some future year.
Mm-hmm.
And budget authority is the legal authority the Congress grants to agencies to enter into obligations and to make outlays.
Yes. Yes. You might want to star that one too. Because like I said, that's another one of those you may not see it, the question stated like that, but you may see a question that refers to those items. What impact does a bond rating have on a town?
It helps determine the cost the town incurs to borrow for major improvements, repairs, and additions. So higher ratings means lower borrowing costs.
Yes, it's just like our credit score. It's your city's credit score. That's the equivalent is your bond rating. 3, define biennial system.
The single budget for a 2-year period.
Yes, and while that's very unusual, especially in a local government, because things can change so drastically from year to year, there are other states, there are our state, other states that larger organizations that sometimes will enter into a biennial system. So number 34, what are the pros and cons of a biennial system?
So potentially less time if you can do 2 years at once, longer term planning that can help even out things like recessions and surpluses. And then cons, the forecasting is not as reliable the longer the term, and it could actually require more time and money to chart that far out.
Yes, and all of that's true. The budget process, if you think about all the people that are involved in that process, it sometimes can be an overwhelming number of people, even at a local level. You've got probably supervisors or department heads that are reporting up to administrators that are then reporting to directors, and you've got all these people in this chain, or you have the opposite. You have 1 or 2 people that are responsible for the entire budget, and that makes up a large portion of what that person's assigned to do over a period of time. So, if they're only doing that process every 2 years, it may be more cost effective. But there's also the other component of that is it requires a lot more review. That final stage really has to be monitored, and it is a little bit more difficult to anticipate recession or things like that may have a drastic impact on your budgets. 35, what is the budget process in Texas?
They organize budget information by agency within broad functional categories such as education, judiciary, and public safety.
And is Texas a biennial system?
No.
Yes.
Oh. I
Yes.
don't know.
We,
Yes.
Texas does use a biennial system. So sometimes when our legislators ask for changes that have a budgetary impact, it's the wrong year. I guess that's for lack of a better word. So sometimes it does either cause some other fund to lose money, things have to get transferred around, or it simply just has to wait until the appropriate year for budgeting. And the other thing that the state of Texas is very big proponents of, and that is an emphasis on a performance-based budget. So they do have some pretty strict performance measures in place, and depend largely on that during the review process. Does the state of Texas require a balanced budget?
Yes. The state comptroller must certify that there's enough revenues to cover the expected expenditures.
Yes, and so do our local, our finance directors or those folks. They also have to certify that there will be sufficient income to cover any expenses that are budgeted. 37, what is a major distinction between government budgets and budgets for nonprofit organizations?
It has to do with the main source of income.
Yes. So for whether we like it or not, the main source of income for governments is taxes, either ad valorem taxes. Some states have income taxes, there's sales taxes, and our court costs are actually taxes that are collected at the local level and then distributed appropriately. Where a nonprofit organization usually gets their funding from donations and grants. Some occasionally have
free money.
merchandise sales or things like that supplement, but the majority of their funding does come from donations and grants. So, do any of you ladies have any specific questions that you want to ask, some burning question that you just would like to have the answer to? All right. So, what I'm going to do, since we do have some time left, is I'm going to pause or stop our recording, and then we can chat offline. Okay. So let me stop that real quick.